Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Hivemind, written by LeVentNoir. It appeared on the internet, not some radio channel received by two underpaid astronomy postdocs at 2 a.m. in Australia, not as a green man landing in front of the White House. Rather, it appeared quite simply across the entire internet. Not one site, every site. Every single one. In every single social media feed, there was a post. There was a story on every newsfeed. It was emailed to every contact address. You are welcome to join the Galactic Federation of Planets. Please indicate if you accept or decline. Most people wrote it off as spam. Some thought it to be a virus. Others, with slightly more curiosity and an understanding of technologies, the breadth of the message and the outright impossibility of the event itself, went digging. And it was impossible. Not the kind of winning the lottery while reenacting winning the lottery, which is merely very unlikely. Nor the kind of impossible like bricks falling upwards, which violates physics. But rather impossible like the ice cube appearing in an oven. Once there, it behaved normally. But how did it get there? So obviously, it fizzled out after a week or so, popping up a few small groups of people who, in their own time, looked into it, and eventually turned their forums and message groups to sports, politics, and everyday chit-chat. It was about a year later when we got the second message. It appeared in exactly the same way as the first, on every website, blog, and video host. This one was more detailed and more sophisticated. It appeared in the language the browser was using, and the videos with the same URL played different audio. We note no indication you received our first invitation. You are welcomed to the Galactic Federation of Planets. We number 472 planets, spread across the Milky Way. Benefits include mutual defense, resource sharing, and cultural exchange. Please indicate if you accept or decline. We'll accept a radio transmission aimed towards Sirius, the brightest star. The videos which appeared on sites supporting them showed a montage of different planets, all with at least some atmosphere or surface liquid. They ranged from gas giants to near-frozen, dark-orbiting rocks. Frame by frame, continuing showed 472 different planets. The internet went completely nuts. It dominated front pages news as more and more information was extracted from the messages. The fact that it appeared in a browser language was the most interesting, but this property was lost the moment the file was downloaded, or even if the device was disconnected from the internet. A number of jokers coded up a language they constructed that morning into a fork of Firefox, and indeed, the message appeared in that language, a language that had not existed when the message arrived. Military and government leaders were reassured by the fact that the message had not made it to any of their isolated networks, but were concerned that every server accessible to the public that hosted websites had been hit. Collaborating with various cybersecurity research groups, it was found from automated logs in such exchanges that the message had not appeared at once worldwide. It was in fact a light-speed delay consistent across the globe, and all indicating the message arrived from space. It wasn't ping, as two low-latency servers far apart registered the delay, but high-ping servers in adjacent racks did not. Groups, discussions, and communities picked at the messages. Their perfect appearance, their complete lack of compression, and utter bafflement that ensued. It seemed almost every week something new came to light, and raging debates about if contact should be initiated continue at the highest level. It was after 3 months that a third message arrived. We note that you've clearly received the message and are deliberating, with no coherent opinion forming. We would like to dispatch an ambassador planet to visit, for the purpose of discussion. We'll arrive at the L4 Lagrange point shortly. 15 minutes later, a planet approximately the size of Mars appeared in the solar system, at the Earth-Sun L4 Lagrange point. Hello? We should have an IP address now in your terminology, and we can communicate directly. You are invited to join the Galactic Federation of Planets. First contact appears to have been shared by approximately 3,500 internet enthusiasts who immediately opened a TCP console, and, as stock for computer people, sent the perfect first contact. Hello world. Hello. We are known to other planets as the greater that sum of parts. What should we call you? A mishmash of names, questions, and sadly a few insults were implied with. It was the next message that shook us. Not the biology, the extelligence. Confusion reigned. But there was a new planet in the sky, and anyone with a TCP console could talk to it. Of course, it went viral. Within minutes, the 3,000-ish had grown to 300,000. Ah, you are the Internet. Welcome, the Internet. We, greatest the sum of parts, invite you to join the Federation of Planets. For the sake of retelling, assume that every response to greater that sum of parts was a representative sampling of Internet users with text terminal. There was no canonical answer, but a rough coherence. Why do you not have a single answer? Are you incapable of giving a single answer? Is every answer an individual biological unit communicating through you? Are your biological units capable of 3 thoughts? An apology and an explanation. We are a hive mind. We are a federation of planetary scale hive minds. We detected a planetary level consciousness, and it never occurred to us that it would be anything but a product of a species with a hive mind. Yes, all 472 members of the Federation are hive minds, operating as planet-bodied collective individuals. This is the first instance we have ever encountered of non-hive mind species creating a planetary consciousness. The Internet is invited to the Galactic Federation of Planets. It was diplomacy by the worst and best democratic means. Of course, only people who could operate the Internet and technologies well could participate, but the technologies weren't complex, and the instructions were spreading as fast as posts could be shared. It was too big for any group to control, but it had certain coherence to it, in the same way a riot does. The conversation splintered and surged. People's questions were answered, ignored, and everything in between. But eventually, many discrete parts came together, like reversing a slow-motion video of a splash. The Internet joined the Federation of Planets. But it was the humans, the 10 million apes and 10 million keyboards who did it. Individually, no more connected than a table with a watermelon. But somehow, through technology and language, we had constructed our own hive mind. It was a unique accomplishment, and amongst both the hive mind species and other alien races that had been ignored by the Federation, nothing else had come close. There were discussions, and well, they were open. They had to be. Anyone on the Internet could take part. The status of humanity was to be protected, and they were a vital component to the Internet, and were given a guarantee of security. The histories of what passed after the Internet joined the Federation are impressive alone, but still, they pale in comparison to the accomplishment that allowed us to be noticed. If you don't have your own hive mind, constructed one is fine. Story number 2, Fault Tolerance, written by LgFatherAnthrocite. Linnup looked up over the specs for the new job. The more he looked at them, the less they made sense to him. Certain systems were not only redundant, but triply so. Machine tolerances were specified to microns. Parts were overbuilt. The madman who had designed this thing was clearly working from some sort of outdated set of codes that failed to take into account the progress of modern material sciences and computer-aided manufacturing. Linnup sent a compad message to his boss, asking why the specs for this device were so wonky. He sent a list of revisions that he thought would save money and still leave the part serviceable. His boss, an accomplished machinist in his own right, sent back a single line of response. It's for the humans. Linnup just shook his head and started to make the part to the original specs on the design he received. Several deco rotations later, the client's representative came into the shop to check on progress. Linnup showed the consumer the parts they had finished and the parts they were working on. The human looked at every machine tool, every indicator, and DRO, checked dimensions at several points on multiple parts. After examining a half-dozen parts and machine tools, Linnup asked the human why they were designing the part in such an odd way. The human looked confused. What do you mean, odd? Look at the chamber wall thickness here. It's twice as thick as it needs to be, and the mating surface has recesses for not one, but two, but 3 O-ring gaskets. The filleting here could be milled off to save weight, but it's spec'd to stay on the part. This thing is twice as heavy and as thick as it needs to be. Linnup pointed at several strange design features as he rotated and finished part in his manipulators. Ah, I see now. After a pause to think, he looked up to Linnup. How long has your species been flying interstellar? The human asked. I don't know, maybe about 1,000 orbs, 1,500, something like that, Linnup spoke. Did your spaceflight pioneers suffer any casualties? The human asked. I'm not sure. I mean, I suppose we must have, Linnup said. In the first 100 years of human spaceflight, we lost 27 people. Some of the bravest and brightest humans to have ever been born. 27. In the first 100 years of superluminal travel, we lost nearly 150. We looked it up, and when we were invited to join the coalition, nearly every other species has doubled to quintupled that number of deaths. The human took the part that the nymph was holding and pointed to the triple grooves for the gasket rings. A failed O-ring cost 7 people their lives. He pointed to the filleting on the one side of the pot. A break in the stress riser cost 3 people their lives. He pointed to a mounting boss on the underside of the pot. An unsupported fuel line broke and caused 2 men to die in a fire. The people of Earth are, despite the perception of us by the wider galaxy, exceptionally risk-averse. We partake in extreme activities, but we have multiple safety checks, procedures, and equipment to keep us safe. Our extremophile nature is one born of a place we come from, but surviving a death world means knowing how to mitigate the chances of death, whether that means taming predators to be companion animals, or designing buildings for living in tectonically active areas, or eating mildly toxic foods for flavor, because pests won't consume them. When we find something that causes harm, we find a workaround, a fix, a new design. The reason our parts are designed this way is because the specs are all written in blood. End of story. Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Bushmaster 177, Henry the Red, Caspar Arnholtz, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Elijah Silvercross, Dragzoon WRE, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.